up, real ones? Welcome back to the Relationship Podcast, where we're bringing the real back to relationships.
Yes, sir.
I'm Asha Steele.
And I'm Devin Steele.
And we're so excited that you guys are tuning in today with us.
Yeah, we think we got a good one for y'all today.
A great one.
You know, I was ruffling through the reviews and stuff that you guys leave on, Apple Podcasts, and one of the listeners left a suggestion, and they thought that we should dive more into the book. Some of the things that we've learned from the previous book that we shared, which is cool to me because, like I said, we really love y'all feedback because we want to try to create the best podcast possible that fits your needs. And we really enjoyed the last podcast we did on the 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. So we're happy to share some other principles that we learned from the book in today's episode.
Absolutely. But before we get into today's episode, let's first go over a question from a real one because, we always tell you guys to send us DMs or email us your questions. We don't get to always get to them after our weekly Bible study, which we have open for questions. So let's go ahead and answer one, right?
By the way, that weekly Bible study is every Thursday on our Instagram, Real Relationships Podcast. Make sure you tune in.
Yes. So it says, good night. How to deal.
I've actually never heard somebody start
with
good night.
Yeah, usually it's like good evening.
Yeah, like that's crazy. But go ahead.
But good night,
Yeah, good night.
Good night. I want to know how to deal with a man who lived with his mom his whole life and has never been in a serious relationship before, but says he wants to try it, but is afraid to go all in.
Yeah.
What you think?
I think first we need some clarification on what his whole life means.
But yeah.
Like when you say he's been living with his mom his whole life, are we talking, 18 years when he was a kid? We talking 40, 50, 60? Like, I think that's very important to know in order to address this question properly.
Right.
But I guess we'll do our best and we'll assume that he's, in his early 20s.
Yeah.
Just getting out of college or something. I don't know. But
right. I would say pretty much it's just having a conversation. I feel like just him acknowledging that, he's open. He hasn't been in a serious relationship. He doesn't necessarily know how to go about things. Yeah. And him being that vulnerable and being open and honest with you, but saying that he's willing to try is a huge plus. Yeah. So just having a conversation of what your expectations are, if you've been in previous relationships, or just what you expect from y'all relationship, expect from him as your man, and how y'all can move forward and work together, because it's all about, y'all balancing each other out. So if you know things that he may not know, go ahead, school him on it, help him out, and make sure that, you're guiding him and he's, following suit. Y'all can work together because that's what it's all about when you're in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Like you said, the fact that he was vulnerable and just really opened up to you. Because a lot of guys don't really open up and say that they're struggling in a certain area or they don't know how to do, certain things. But like Asha said, it's important for y'all to sit down and have a conversation because maybe he has seen something in his life growing up. Maybe he saw something, happen to his mom that really, what I want to say, that really created this idea in his head of what a relationship is like. Or maybe he's dealt with women in the past, maybe never had a serious relationship, but he got hurt in the past and he's scared to, give somebody his heart again. So I think it's important to really sit down and have that conversation and find out what is stopping him from giving it his all so that y'all can nip that in the bud early on so that you don't waste each other's time.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I think I touched on last time my keeping it real.
Yeah.
moment.
So let me address that.
Right?
Okay.
I touched on it.
Hold on. Yes, you did. You talked about me being a DIYer. So let's touch on it. This is not my just keeping it real moment, but it's going to be a part of them. I have 2. All right. I'm going to give y'all 2 today. So the first one is, it's the time of the year where, let me rewind a little bit. Okay. So Black Friday just happened, right?
Right.
And if you follow me on Instagram, don't do that.
Come
You
on.
follow me on Instagram, you see that I was doing a kitchen remodel, a DIY kitchen remodel.
Here
You know,
we
I spray
go.
painted
Here
the
we
cabinets and
go.
everything, changed the color because Asha wasn't really feeling it. So
Mhm.
Black Friday come around, you know that's the best time to buy appliances. In case y'all don't know, they be like 40% markdowns on them. So, you know, I go over to Lowe's and I buy her a whole kitchen suite, new sink, new refrigerator, new microwave, new oven, new cooktop.
We appreciate
And
it.
I installed dishwasher, and I installed everything but the refrigerator and the dishwasher. And it works perfectly fine.
Excellent.
And I have no background in appliances,
None
installing
whatsoever.
appliances.
Nope.
But what I do, I hop on YouTube, I find out how to install these things, and I get it done.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you ain't got nothing to say about that, right?
Not about that.
Okay, so moving right along.
Right along.
You know, to stop playing with me. It's the time of the year where people are decorating for the holidays.
Right.
They're putting up Christmas lights and everything. So you know your boy, I'm not paying nobody no $1,200 to come hang lights up on my house. So I decided to do it myself. So I wrap the trees in our front yard. I wrap the big bushes. I do the small bushes with the net lights. And we probably got like the best front yard on the block so far.
Yeah.
All I gotta do is hang up the icicles, and then I'm gonna climb up on the roof, and I'm gonna outline our house with some lights.
That's what you're not gonna do. That we're gonna stop it right there.
Why?
That's what you're not gonna do.
Why?
I'm not trying to go to the emergency room.
Who says I'm gonna go to? Who says something gonna happen?
Anyone, you know, swift wind that come by
way to lift
knock
me up.
you over.
Way to be
You
that
never
strong
know. You
partner
don't
to
climb on
support
roofs for a
your
living.
partner's dreams and aspirations.
No, I'm trying to make sure that my partner is safe.
But we got health insurance, good health insurance. So if something do happen to me, I'll be straight.
Y'all know. I think we just gonna keep it with the icicles.
So do I not get no credit for everything that I've done?
Absolutely, I just gave you kudos.
Right. So then, as time goes on, you should allow me to do. You know,
but there's some things I have to, you know, pump the brakes
like what?
on, like climbing on top of our roof to put lights up.
But it's not that hard. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube.
You know,
where people
YouTube be having a lot of people out here thinking they can do a lot of things, and some may. But to be honest, they don't be giving disclaimers, and they don't be giving you all the details. You go in there and you think, oh, it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You get up on that roof and it's a totally different thing. So I'm just trying to help my man, make sure that he's safe. But you know what? If
I'm doing the next episode, I would tell y'all how it turned out. We'll end up putting like a clip in the corner or something to show you, you know, what the house looked like. But I ain't paying her no mind. But let's get into the real, just keeping it real moment. On a serious note, my just keeping it real moment is to tell all our listeners out there that it's okay to not be okay, right? Mm-hmm. We're going through a lot of things in life right now. You know, people are stressed out by a lot of things. We have over 260,000 people who have died since March. We have millions of people on unemployment. People are losing their job. Christmas is coming up and you feel like you may not be able to provide a Christmas for your kids as far as gifts. And they're too young to understand the real purpose behind Christmas. And it's stressful. And a lot of times we keep, you know, the battles that we're fighting on the inside and nobody knows what we're going through. And we try to stay strong. We try to be that rock for people. But I want to let you know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel stressed. But what you must do is you have to talk about it, right? Don't fight these things alone because you're not the only person who was going through this. Mm-hmm. Like I have to keep it real with myself. There's times where I've been struggling mentally, right? We started off the year where the pandemic hit and I make a lot of my money traveling, speaking at conferences and stuff like that. And I started off this year booking a lot of conferences to speak at. Mm-hmm. And then soon the pandemic hit, everybody just started to cancel. And that's tens of thousands of dollars just going down the drain. Money that I use to support my family. So, of course, it added a lot of stress trying to find out new ways to bring in money. And then, you know, just being in the house all the time. Yeah. Not being able to go out and just enjoy life. having a small child not being able to experience doing things because of COVID. She's basically been growing up inside of the house. It's tough. And then with our latest obstacle of us having a miscarriage, it's like things just keep piling on.
Yeah.
And there are times where, I just have negative thoughts enter my mind. Like, it's crazy because it takes absolutely no effort for negative thoughts to consume your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right? None at all. You can just be sitting there and all of a sudden you just start thinking negative thoughts. You just start stressing out about stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And what I used to do before is I used to just bottle it in, right? Because I felt like I was taught as a man that you just fight through your problems, right? And that's kind of what this episode is going to talk about today, being able to open up. But I thought that you're just supposed to fight through your problems, but I learned from my mistakes in the past. Mm-hmm. So now if I feel like I'm overwhelmed or I'm stressed out or I have negative thoughts going on in my mind, I make sure that I do something to release those negative thoughts. And one of the things that I do is I turn to Asha and I let her know, look, this is what I'm going through right now. Because I now realize that I can lean on her in times where I feel weak, where I feel stressed, and she'll be there to support me. And there's times where she may feel stressed out. Like she has a lot on her mind. And I got to be that support system for her. So make sure if you're in a relationship right now that you guys are turning to each other and supporting each other because people are going through some crazy things.
Yeah.
Right? So, and for those who may not have somebody to turn to, those who are tuning into this podcast who are single, reach out to us. We tell y'all all the time, DM us, send us an email, because we don't want you going through this alone too. We want to be that listening ear for you in case you're going through something. And maybe we may be able to help out or something, but just make sure that you're not going through these troubled times, these dark times by yourself. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. I saw somebody post on Instagram not too long ago that having emotions or being emotional is not weak. Not being able to control them are weak. Right? So we have to learn how to control our emotions and understand it's okay to be vulnerable, to let people know the battles that you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I feel like that is like a great segue into today's topic because we are discussing turning towards or turning away, which is basically turning towards your partner or turning away from them. And we heard about this principle after reading John Gottman's book, The 7 Principles to Make a Marriage Last. And
Work.
I'm sorry. 7 Principles to Making Marriage Work. So this was like a huge thing for us because we started to notice like that we were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Just like little, what they like to describe as bids, right? So just kind of explain what they mean by the bids and turning towards and turning away before we get into the discussion.
So when we're talking about turning towards and turning away from your partner, what they basically discuss in this book is something called bids. And John Gottman says that couples make bids for each other's attention, affection, humor, and support. And bids can be as small or minor as asking for a back rub, or as significant as, taking on the load if a parent is ill. Mm-hmm. And when you turn towards your partner, you receive the bid. You understand what your partner is asking you, what they need from you, right? And you're there to answer that bid. And people who don't answer the bid, they completely miss out on what their partner is asking for. They completely miss out that their partner is seeking their attention, their affection, their comfort. And it's crazy because in one of the studies that they did, like we told y'all before, they have something called a love lab where they study couples. And in this study, they found that married couples who turn to each other 86% of the time remain married. And couples who only turn to each other 33% of the time ended up in divorce. And when we read that in the book, I was like, man, we got to share this because this is huge. If turning away or turning towards your partner has this much of an impact on somebody's relationship, on somebody's marriage, people need to hear about this because I think a lot of people don't know about it.
Yes.
And these small moments go by and they don't really understand how important these moments are to the survival of your relationship.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I really feel like after reading that part of the book, like I started to really identify the bids in our relationship and identify how I was either turning towards or turning away. And it's so eye-opening after reading something. And like I said before, like you don't really have a name for it and you don't even acknowledge that you're doing it. And then once you see or hear like something that it actually has a name for your action that you're doing, you're like, whoa, like I actually been doing this and it's contributing to the growth and progression of my relationship, whether it be positive or negative.
Right.
So just reading that was so like eye-opening to me. What you think?
Yeah, I agree too. I think that this book has really opened up our eyes to a lot of things. And like you said, it's giving things name. Right? Because only when you can only address something and fix something when you give it a name. Right? When you talk about it, you only can heal what you're willing to reveal. And by reading this book, it really opened up our eyes to a lot of the things that were going on in our marriage that if we didn't find this book, it probably would have crept up on us and had a huge negative impact on our relationship. But because we're taking the initiative to actually go out here and learn about having successful relationships and learn about, having successful marriages, we can fix those things so that we have a relationship that flourish. And this is why we, share these topics on this podcast, because we want to make sure that everybody out there is also having a flourishing relationship and we're keeping, families together. So like Asha said, this turning towards each other is big, because turning towards your partner, it really builds trust. It builds emotional connection, passion, and satisfying sex in your relationship. And in order to learn how to start turning towards your partner, you first have to understand how important these mini moments are in your relationship. And I'll give you an example that they talked about in the book about a small bid for your partner's attention. They talked about, like going to the grocery store and your wife says to you, honey, is there any butter at home? And instead of saying, oh, I don't know, and keeping it moving, which is turning away from your partner, you say, you know what, let me go grab a stick of butter just in case we don't have none. Right. And although that's such a small gesture, your wife will look at it like, oh man, he really cares. He's listening to what I'm saying because he wants to make sure that when we get home, I have what I need. Right? So just doing small things like that over time, like it's like a snowball effect. It might seem small right now, but it becomes a snowball effect. And I believe they talked about, making deposits in your emotional bank account. When things get tough, you're not depleting your account, your emotions. So it's very important to learn how to turn towards each other. And we're going to really dive into how you can do that.
Yeah. And just like I wanted to give an example just for the viewers, like of what the bid may look like, because I actually didn't even notice or even realize it at the time. But then after reading this, I was like, you know what, that was a bid, because it was a time where I think it was maybe like 2 months ago, and Devin was planning like this date night for us or whatever, right? So he was being real secretive. And he was just like asking me questions like about like what I would like to wear.
Oh,
right?
Man.
So he was like,
oh, she made me so mad this time. I know exactly what you about to talk about.
So I was literally like, I was on the go. Any, moms out there trying to balance the household, clean up and do work, school work, run around with the little ones. So it was like I was just juggling and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And like he was sitting on a couch on his computer and he was just like, oh, like what type of, clothes do you like? Do you like this? Do you like that? Like, do you like just trying to get like an idea, right?
And the only reason why I asked is because she changed like the weather. So normally I would know, like before, her favorite color to wear was olive. Hence the olive shirt. But then I found out she don't even like it no more. And she don't communicate these things. So I don't like buying her nothing without making sure she's still in that season of her life. But you continue.
Yeah. So he was asking me these questions. And I'm just thinking like, oh, he's just asking me questions like randomly. Just like he said, just to try to get a feel for whatever. Not even thinking about it. So he's like, oh, come sit down and look at this with me. And I'm sitting there like,
Hmm.
I don't have time for that. Like, I have to do this, that, and third. Like, I'll tell you, or we can talk about it later, but right now. And that moment turned into something bigger, which escalated because I didn't even grasp the bid that he was throwing out, because he was trying to, figure out my style so that he can purchase an outfit for me secretively for our date night that he was planning. And I had no clue. So I kind of like ruined it. The surprise. But it's just like little moments like that, just like where they talk about taking the time to acknowledge your partner and acknowledge the bid that they're throwing out, and something so small. Like, can you imagine someone constantly doing something like that and it building up the tension that will come in your relationship, right?
Yeah.
So just that moment, I looked back and just like remember like just like times like, oh wow, that was a bid that was thrown out, you know what I mean? And try to put it to my relationship. So now, like I said, with it being so eye-opening, I can identify with what I was doing wrong so that I can move and do things differently in the future.
Yeah, just because you identified, I don't want you to think that every time I ask you, do you like this, that means I'm going to buy it for you. Because I know that, he must be planning something. Oh, he must be buying me something. No. From now on, I'm just asking questions, just to ask questions.
But I'm just saying, like, it's all about your approach, and we'll dive more into the approach and how you handle things. But it's definitely about how you approach things when talking to your partner and when they're talking to you.
Yeah, I think a good point that you brung up that I didn't really is that the snowball effect is just not positive. Mm-hmm. The snowball effect can be negative too. If you continue to miss those little moments, your partner might feel a certain way, and something so small will turn into something so big. So hopefully this podcast will help you guys understand what bids are and how you can turn towards your partner instead of turning away. Like we already addressed before, the first part of learning how to turn towards your partner is understanding just how important these moments are. Mm-hmm. And we also want to let you guys know the two obstacles that get in the way of you turning towards your partner, because when you turn away from your partner, it's not done. Most of the time, it's not done out of malice. Mm-hmm. It's because you don't know. You don't know that your partner is, trying to throw a bid towards you because you've been raised, certain ways, or you're just so accustomed to doing things a certain way that you completely miss out on this. But one of the ways that they talk about, one of the obstacles in not being able to catch your partner's bid is maybe that their bid is wrapped up in frustration or anger. Yes. And instead of listening to what they're saying, you're more focused on the tone that they're using towards you. Yes. And it can be as simple as maybe your partner's trying to talk to you and you're not really focused on what they're saying. And they're like, every time I try to talk to you, you never listen to me. And then you get defensive and you start to stonewall. You start to shut down instead of realizing that your partner is not really trying to come at you, but what they're asking in that statement is, I want to have me and you time where we can sit down and talk. Like, I want to be heard. And if you hear your partner doing that, if you stop focusing on the tone in which they came at you and focus on what they're really asking, that gives you a chance to turn towards your partner and really be that person that they need you to be in that moment.
Yeah, I think this is a big one for me because I'm very like stuck on tones, right? Yeah. So like you can be saying, you could be saying the nicest thing in the world. I was a
baritone when I was in the choir.
But if your tone is off, I'm just like, lower your voice. Okay, you want to bring it down? Can we use our inside voices? And you see all these hand movements.
If you watching, do you see all these hand movements she do? She do all that when we be talking.
So it's just like, I think this is a big thing to to just acknowledge. Like, okay, don't get so caught up in the tone of it or how the approach is. Kind of like try to pull out what your partner is asking from you, and even on the receiving, like just trying to acknowledge your partner just giving the bid. I think they recall in the book saying like just taking out, okay, I want to, be able to help you with what you need or what you're asking for, but I'm not really receiving it because of your tone.
Right.
So can you, let me know what it is that you need? Just being able to communicate, and not escalating it because you're looking at it like, oh, you coming at me kind of, harsh.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can work on it on both ends. So as the receiver, you want to make sure that you're listening for the bid, what your partner is asking from you. But as the person who's delivering the message, you want to try your best not to wrap it up in anger and frustration and criticism, because we talked about it in our previous episode with this book about the four horsemen, which one was criticism. You want to focus on complaining, which is telling your partner, what you need, how you feel, and what they did in order to cause you to be frustrated. So both of y'all have to work on it, the person who's delivering and the person who's receiving it.
Right.
But the second obstacle that they talked about where people miss bids is us being so wrapped up in the wired world.
Yes.
That we're so connected to technology, our phones, computers, that we're disconnected from our relationships.
Absolutely.
Which will end up hurting you in the long run.
Yeah. I think that's huge, because like you said, in today's society, the world is so consumed by technology.
Yeah.
Right. And then you even see it like going to restaurants, and people are like, where you're sitting at an intimate dinner, you would think people are stuck in their phone. Like the whole table will be in their phone. It's just like, what are we doing? So it's crazy how like something as small as a little device like your phone could be detrimental to your relationship.
Right. Yeah. Just think about it. Like just have an honest moment right now. How many times have your partner been talking to you while you're on the phone, right? Y'all wasn't talking. You may have just been on your phone. You're doing something, scrolling through Instagram, sending emails, whatever the case may be, and they're talking to you. You answer them, but you're looking down at your phone while you answer them. You didn't even take time to stop and look up.
Right.
Right? Which is very important, because everybody is doing this nowadays, that everybody else you're easily accessible to. But it's hard for your partner to access the part of you that they need the most, which is a huge problem.
Yeah. And it also talks, and this is true to a lot of people, just with being so caught up in social media, that you're actually taking away so much attention from your partner.
Yeah.
And then you're putting it into other, people possibly on your device, which can cause problems as well, because, that person, your partner, is looking for you to, talk to them and be passionate with them and engaging with them. But now you're engaging with, a follower, you're talking to them, you start to get consumed with that, and that can lead to other things. So that's another way that, you can get caught up within the wire world, as they say, with technology, is just being so engulfed in your phone that you're not even realizing that you're spending and giving more time to people on social media or whatever internet access instead of your partner.
Yeah, and another good example they gave, which really brings it together as far as being wrapped up in a wired world and missing a bid in your relationship, is like, let's say, because nowadays jobs want access to you even after you're off the clock and you're at home. They still want to be able to email you, call you. So maybe you're up all night sending emails, trying to get stuff done for work, and your partner's like, man, you still sending out emails? Like, what is going on? Why are they always emailing you? And you're frustrated because your boss pissing you off because they keep emailing when you're trying to chill, and your partner's upset because you're upset at your partner because they don't understand, the responsibilities you have at work, when you can just take the time out and say, you know what? I know that they're frustrated, and I know they didn't mean to raise their voice at me. What they're really asking is for me to come to bed because they probably want to spend some quality time with me, get some nookie or something. So you just got to, try to focus on, what your partner is asking you for instead of how they're asking for it.
Yeah. So another principle that we gathered from this part of the book was the 7 ways to overcome the challenge of coping with your partner's expression of emotional pain, which is hard for a lot of people to deal with, especially if you're not very emotional or, attached to your emotions, where you get, so caught up in them that you can understand how someone else is feeling. You have empathy for someone. So this helps with those individuals who have a hard time doing that, right?
Yeah, and they talked about in the book that a lot of this is rooted in our upbringing. You're not being able to empathize with our partner, not being able to handle the emotions that our partner is expressing. And they talked about, like, when you're growing up, that maybe you had an instance where, you came to your parents about something and they didn't comfort you in the time where you needed comfort, or they didn't give you the amount of comfort that you needed. And then you grow up believing that you have to internalize everything that you're going through because nobody out there cares about what you're going through. So you start to try to handle your problems on your own. Like I've heard stories of, women who went to their moms and said, look, I was molested when they were a kid. Mm-hmm. And their mom says, we don't talk about these things. Like we keep it in the family. And you're like, what? Like you're supposed to be my mom. And I'm coming to you letting you know that somebody's violating me, and you tell me that I need to internalize that. Yeah. And shut down and not live in my truth and not talk about what I'm going through. So as you get older, you start to recycle that behavior and bring it into new relationships, not knowing that it's the wrong thing to do because you've been taught at a young age that this is what you're supposed to do. Men were taught to try to be strong and continue to fight. Like if there's one thing that I learned from my dad, like he's taught me a lot about life, a lot of good and some bad. And one of the things that, I loved about my dad when I was growing up is that he seemed so strong. Like I know that we were going through a lot of stuff as a family, financially and stuff like that, but he never allowed it to steal his joy. He always had a smile on his face. Like he always just pushed through whatever adversity he was going through. But I felt like that did a disservice for me because then I felt like life was easy until I got older and I realized just how hard things were or are. And then I realized just how hard things were with my dad. And because I had saw him be so strong and fight through those tough times and not really talk about it, when I got older, I just fought through tough times. And I never really shared with people what I was going through. And that impacted my relationships. And they wrote something in the book that I wanted to read with y'all because I thought it was so powerful. And they said, we learn to internalize or harbor our emotions because expressing sadness or fear meant you were soft. A child's expression of anger meant you were disrespectful or indication of a mental illness. And this causes us to become self-reliant problem solvers who avoid feelings. And I know that may reach a lot of people who are listening to this or watching this right now, and you're like, man, that's me. Mm-hmm. Like I went through a lot in my life, in my childhood, and it taught me to really harbor my emotions and not have any emotions and try to solve all my problems on my own. But when you get in a relationship, it is a partnership. Like you shouldn't have to do nothing by yourself. You shouldn't have to go through nothing by yourself no more. Right. Like y'all should be able to create an environment where y'all both feel comfortable coming to one another and expressing what you're going through, and you don't feel judged. Yeah. Right? Like you don't have to solve all the problems by yourself. And that's why Asha brought up the 7 ways to overcome the challenge of coping with your partner's emotion, because it's extremely important to learn how to create that culture so that you can both be that support system from one another. So to just hop into the first one is acknowledge the difficulty. Like coming to your partner and telling them, look, I struggle at empathizing with other people are going through. Like this is what I went through as a kid that makes me shut down emotionally. Mm-hmm. This is why you may feel like I'm not there for you because I don't even know how to be there. But I love you so much that I'm willing to put in the work to learn how to be more empathetic, to learn how to be your rock, to learn how to be your support system.
Right. Yeah. So the second thing you want to do is self-soothe. So that's referring to if your partner is going through something and they need your support, but you're having a hard time connecting with them emotionally, and it's kind of overwhelming you, what you can do to soothe yourself. So whether it be if, you need to meditate, you need to pray, if you go for a run, workout, whatever it is that calms your nerves and put you in a place where you're at peace and in a zen space so that you can be of support for your partner is what you need to do, because you need to have that mental clarity and be able to exhaust all your energy to be there for your partner. So put yourself in that space where you're soothed and you're calm and you're relaxed so that you can go in being helpful for your partner.
Yeah, because it's high stress levels when dealing with stuff, especially right now. We're going through so much that solving the smallest problems takes so much energy.
Yeah.
Because it's just a small problem to a mountain of problems that you have to try to find a way to self-soothe. To give you an example, when we went through the miscarriage, like it was tough. It was extremely tough. But as a man, I understood that Asha, it had to be 110 times tougher for her because she was actually growing the baby in her stomach, in her womb, connecting with the baby more than I could do on the outside. And she was the one who had to go through the different procedures. And a lot of this stuff, it was uncomfortable for me because I didn't know how to be there for her. Because although I tried to be empathetic, like putting myself in her shoes without actually having to be in her shoes, I didn't know what that felt like. Right? I knew what it felt like for me, but I didn't know what that felt like for her. So there were times where I would have to walk out the room and just go do something to get my mind right. Whether it would be go for a walk, go for a run, lift, do something, listen to TD Jakes, do something to recharge me. Because you have to understand, when you're trying to deal with tough situations in your life, both of y'all can't be drained.
Yes.
Both of y'all battery can't be on E, right? Because you won't get nowhere. One person has to step out and recharge themselves, fill their battery up, so when they go back into the situation, that your partner can charge off of you, right? You can feed them the energy, the inspiration, the motivation, right? The faith that they need, the hope that they need to continue to move forward. So learning how to self-soothe is critical, and learning how to, cope with the emotions and stresses that your partner is going through. The third one is just understanding that the goal is to understand, right? To understand what your partner is going through, to empathize with what your partner is going through, not the problem solve.
Right.
Not to be there and try to fix all the problems that your partner is going through. Sometimes, especially men, us as men, we have to learn that our women don't always need us to be problem solvers. They need us to listen, right? And them just talking to us will allow them to figure out how to solve the problem.
Right.
But we first have to be there to listen to them, understanding what they're saying and letting them know, I hear you, I see you, and I'm going to be here for you. Like they brought up a quote inside the book where it says, when the world stops, when you're going through something, the world stops and I listen. It didn't say when you're going through something, the world stops and I fix. Right. It says I listen. You have to sit there and listen and allow your partner to express themselves so they can open up, so they can feel like they have, somebody they can turn to, and that will turn back to them.
Yes. So the fourth thing is to use exploratory statements and open-ended questions. So the whole point is just making sure that your partner is able to talk to you, right? Because that's what they really need to do, if that's what they want to do. So just being able to, ask them questions that they can continue to talk and continue to express themselves, to let out how they're feeling, and know that you're actually interested in what they're going through, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, that goes with part of being a good listener. Like if your partner's coming to you and they say, man, I'm just so frustrated at work. Like ask them what is happening at work that's making them so frustrated.
Right.
So they go in depth about what they're going through. You want your partner to feel like they can share the world with you, to tell you everything that's going on. And the only way that you can do that is by asking open-ended questions, so they can continue to, unpack the layers to that onion, so you can really find out what's going on. And the fifth one is very important too. Asking open-ended questions is, don't ask why, right? Don't ask them why they feel some type of way. Because when you're a problem solver, the first thing you want to find out is why something is happening.
Right.
But when you're talking about sensitive topics with your partner, sometimes asking them why invalidates how they feel. Like, you may be trying to figure out what's going on, but what they hear is you're basically saying, why do I feel like that way? Like, why are you so frustrated at work? You lucky you have a job. So it can come off insensitive. So you want to make sure when you're leading with open-ended questions that you leave why out of it and lead with stuff like what is making you feel that way.
Right. I think that goes into the sixth one of just bearing witness to your partner to let them know that you understand you're hearing them, right? So just making sure like you're repeating what they're saying back to you, right? So that they know like, oh, I'm not just talking to a brick wall. Because sometimes when you're talking to someone and you're being that, good listener, you're just sitting there and they might be like, are they even paying attention to me?
Right.
Right. So just being able to have that conversation and let them know, oh, you're having a tough day at work, right? And they're expressing why they're having so much of a tough day. Their boss is doing this, or their, coworker is doing that. Just repeating back like, oh, so you say your coworker is doing this. Why do you think that is? Like being able to engage and actually talk and relate what you're hearing back to them so that they know they are all the way tuned in. I can be able to, let everything out to my partner and they're going to listen and they're going to, be open and talk back to me and not just give me like, oh, shrug me off like they're not really caring, you know?
You got to let your partner know that you see them, that you see their pain, that you see their frustration. If nobody else in the world feels like they have the right to be angry, that they have the right to be pissed off, mad, they should know that their partner sees why they feel the way they do. Absolutely. Even if you don't agree, you have to let your partner know that you see how they can feel the way that they're feeling. It's big. Like you may think that this type of stuff is small, but it's big, and that snowball effect is real, and it can end up hurting your relationship. Yeah. Number 7, I'll let you talk about this because I know you don't really like this one too much because it's kind of weird. So I'll let you jump into this one.
So number 7 is to use metaphors. And so
use your partner's metaphors.
Use your partner's metaphors. So what I grasped from it was kind of odd because for my, character type, I would be more so annoyed by it than, oh, they're doing it. But it's just basically like if your partner's saying, oh, I'm so stressed, I feel like the world is just crashing down on me, right? Yeah. And you're asking them, so why is it that you feel like the world is crashing down on you? Let me know, and just like repeating it back. It's just like, even though in the previous 6 one is like to repeat what you're saying, like just actually repeating every single thing that your partner is saying, like their metaphors can get kind of like, to me, like tiresome.
Yeah.
Like, is it sarcasm? Like, what are you doing? So I guess it just depends. Like, if you're in that moment and that's the type of, person you're dealing with, your partner.
Yeah.
But that kind of like, I was just like,
It is kind of weird because we don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to take some time getting used to it. If they, put the time in to do the research and they have evidence to support it, then it's definitely something that you should give a try. But it was weird because I remember they gave an example where it's like your partner says, I feel like the world is crashing down on me. You was like, so what I hear you saying is that the world is crashing down on you. Am I right? And I can't imagine Asha
just
repeating
being in
that.
the heat of the moment, like, are you serious right now?
I can't imagine
just told you
repeating that to
the
me.
world is crashing down on me, Devin. Why would you ask it again?
But what I think you can just seeing that is just, relate to your partner like, man, you must have a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of things that's stressing you out right now that you feel like the world is just coming down on you. Like, what is it that's the heaviest? Like, what do you feel like is the heaviest on your shoulders?
Yeah.
Again, which is an open-ended question and allows them to dive in depth a little bit more about what you're going through. But that's definitely a tough one that we're going to have to work through because I don't see that working for us. But with this turning towards each other and turning away from each other and understanding bids, it's not easy. Right? We read this book a while ago, and sometimes we still struggle with catching each other's bids or recognizing whether we're turning towards each other or turning away from each other. But one thing that we try to do is we try to hold each other accountable. Like if I throw a bid toward Asha and she doesn't catch it, I'll say, hey, I just threw a bid at you.
Oh yes, we will.
I have no problem. Like, hey, listen.
That was
I
a bid. If you didn't notice, that was a bid.
Let's rewind and try this again. Like I remember what we was watching, Ready to Love or something, and Asha, right? She doesn't like talking during shows or during movies, which is weird when you're in a relationship.
It's not weird.
It's extremely weird.
Because I feel like
I like to talk about it. Like if something funny happened, I'll be like, yo, did you just see that? Or if something intriguing happened, I'll be like, yo, did you hear that?
Like, okay, think about it like this, right? If you go to the movie theater and you have someone talking the whole time during the movie, you like ready to throw your popcorn and soda at them. Like, be quiet.
Not a stranger, not your partner.
But it's the same thing. Like, if I'm watching something, I'm engaged.
That's why I'm just going to tweet. This is why I'm just going to tweet. So I'm going to be wrapped up in a wild world. If you don't want to listen to me while I'm watching something, I just tweet, and maybe 100,000 people who follow me may be,
talking during the commercials or having like a small talk. But Devin will have a full-fledged conversation.
Excuse me. We be recording stuff and you fast forward on commercials. So where do I have the opportunity to talk?
But you'll have a full conversation, and it's just like you miss parts, and then we got to rewind.
I just be wanting to, enjoy that one-on-one time that we have watching something that we both enjoy, but you don't be catching my bid.
You're right. I'm going to catch the bid next time.
Thank you.
I'm going to press pause.
Catch the bid or get out
How
the bed.
How about that? We can press pause.
Catch the bid or get out the bed. Okay? That's how
I would never get out the bed. But yeah, we want to compromise. And I'm going to press pause so you can have that moment.
All right. Yeah. So
that sounds good, right? You see?
Whatever.
You see it's working?
Just understand that it's going to be a struggle. But now you have the knowledge that you need in order to make the change in your relationship. Right? Like we said, the first problem to not being able to catch your partner's bid is not understanding how important those micro moments are. Mm-hmm. Now you know. Now it's up to you to do the work. Now it's up for you to say, you know what? I understand what we're doing wrong in our relationship. I can see exactly what they're talking about in our relationship. And here is how we're going to change it. Because now we understand what we're doing wrong.
Absolutely. I feel like that's major. And once you if y'all haven't, gotten the book, if y'all want to read the book for yourself so y'all can really grasp what we're talking about, or even just going over the steps that we talked about in this podcast, once you relate it to your life, you will see how much your relationship can change. Like if you're noticing a pattern of just negativity when you're interacting with your partner, and it's constantly going tit for tat or just tension, start to apply these, principles that we're talking about and see how much changes when try to change and shift your demeanor when you're approaching certain situations. It will really help improve your relationship.
Yeah, and just continue to try to grow. Mm-hmm. When you actually take the time out to learn how to have a successful relationship, it makes a huge difference. Because a lot of us are out here just winging it, not knowing how to have a good marriage because we didn't see one growing up. And then we go out here and get married, think that we know what we're going to do, but we haven't put in the time and effort to really learn how to have a successful relationship. And it's so crucial because it's not just you that's going to be impacted by how your relationship and your marriage go, especially if you have kids involved. You got to put in the effort to try to make sure that you're able to keep your family unit together. And that takes time and effort. It takes research, reading, learning how to love, learning how to be loved.
Yes.
Because a lot of us don't even know how to receive love because we've been through so much in our life. So, man, we appreciate y'all continuing to tune into our podcast. We're going to continue to share with y'all everything that we're learning to have a marriage or relationship that flourish. You just got to continue to tune in and continue to leave, your 5-star reviews and leave us comments on Apple Podcasts so that we can reach more people, because people need to hear this message. I know I needed to hear this message. That's why I started this podcast. That's why we started this podcast, because I wanted to be a voice that not only hold men accountable, because I felt like my life changed when I had men in my life that held me accountable, but I also want to be the person who praise men for doing the right things, for stepping up and being a family man, for loving the woman the right way, and just going against the grain for what society tells us a real man is, right? A real man is somebody who makes a lot of money, who has a lot of girls, who runs the streets. Man, that's not what a real man is. Like a real man is somebody who's a stand-up guy. Like they can call you, I don't care what industry you in. Like they can call you a great athlete. They can call you a real N-word in the streets, whatever. But my question to you is, what does your family say about you? Like I don't care about what your if you run a business, what your employees say about you. I don't care what your coworkers say about you. I don't care what the public says about you. I want to know what your family says about you. What does your wife say about you? What does your kids say about you? Because those are the people who get to see you when the curtains are closed, right? Because when we walk out this door, we all put on a mask and show the world a totally different side of us than what our family sees at home. So if your family is not saying that you a great man, that you're not a stand-up man, that you don't take care of responsibilities, then you got some work to do. And like I said, I'll be there to hold you accountable. I hope you guys hold me accountable.
Hold us accountable.
I'm talking to my fellas out there.
Ladies
but
too.
I also am going to be the person who praises y'all. When I see y'all doing the right thing, I'm going to uplift y'all so that we all uplift each other and try to be the men that our women need and be the dads that our kids need.
Yes. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode. Until next time, you guys, keep it real.
Yes, sir.